This is lecture number DR033WS07. This is the 33rd of the Mega Genius lectures and the 7th lecture of the Whole Truth series. It was recorded on November 22nd, 2000. The title of this lecture is The Rainbows of Truth. It is 39 minutes long. Copyright 2000 by Mega Genius. All rights reserved. This lecture is protected by internationally valid copyright. It may not, in whole or in part, be duplicated, transmitted, or otherwise reproduced without the express permission of Mega Genius. Unauthorized translation, importation, or distribution is a violation of applicable laws. Mega Genius is a United States federally registered trademark and service mark. And now, here is Mega Genius.
Let's address the matter of the truth distortion lens in greater depth. I used an analogy comparing the locked door to truth with man's knowledge of the exact composition of truth. His lack of knowledge has been the great barrier on the road of truth. The only remaining obstacle of any consequence between you, with the understanding you now have, and ultimate truth, at the end of the road ahead, is your truth distortion lens. It represents a real thing that does exist. Exactly what that thing is and why it acts as it does, and just who may have put it there, is a matter that I won't go into at this time due to its complexity. Yes, it contains an extremely high magnitude of falseness. Of course, it becomes utter simplicity when completely understood, but to explain it in a way that is reasonably understandable would require more words and time than is convenient for either of us at this time. The important points to know are that the words truth distortion lens represent something that is real. It is, in part, a specific and measurable mental phenomenon that is common to every being in this universe and is the thing that interferes with each one's perception and intelligence, thereby stifling his ability to see a measurable truth at a glance. It is the fly in the ointment that results in the persistence of all falseness. Fortunately, however, it is effectively addressed head-on and utterly defeated by applying the Genius formula. Is there any way that one's truth distortion lens can be intentionally pushed aside? The answer is yes, but it is a losing game. Technically, it will not push completely aside, but I know of techniques that will cause it to slip out of position, which allow the person to peek over the rim and see truth straight on. Consequently, those techniques can be extremely beneficial in the short term. The problem is that the lens quickly corrects its position, usually within a few hours. Therefore, it is not a long-term solution. It was the flaw in Buddha's technique. Many who have taken certain drugs have experienced periods of exhilaration, great serenity, or have had cognitions of magnitude that impressed them deeply and changed their lives. In many cases, they saw some important truth. LSD and a number of other drugs can cause that effect. Through chemical force, they can knock one's truth distortion lens temporarily out of place, allowing the opportunity to peek over the rim. Sometimes the drug user remembers the wondrousness of what he saw and mistakenly assigns that quality to the drug. But it is not the drug that is wondrous, it is the truth that he glimpsed. Thereafter he may sometimes experience unpredictable flashbacks during which he relives some part of the drug episode. He will consider the flashback to be good if he re-experiences some of the truth that he saw, and bad if it reflects the falseness that had been obscuring the truth, falseness that the drug never permitted him to understand and that still lies across his road of truth. When he looks later at the truth that he cognited upon, he tends soon thereafter to run into that falseness. It is that falseness that results not only in bad flashbacks, but bad drug trips previously. They occur due to the chemical force of the drug. Again, truth and force never mix. Now, those who distribute LSD, angel dust, ecstasy, and similar drugs are injuring their fellow man far more than they know. The user of a strong drug may think it enables him to expand his attention and examine life more thoroughly, thereby progressing along a road to some enlightenment, and he may well be right. But his deadly mistake is in assuming that he is aware of all the drug's effects. Strong drugs do much more than knock the truth distortion lens temporarily out of position. Every time such a drug is taken, it covertly and insidiously adds a higher degree of cloudiness to the user's lens. Others may notice, but the user seldom does. After all, he is the one who is looking through a dirty window. Each time the drug is used, it results in additional distortion to the lens, further impairing the ability of the user to discover the truly great truths of life, and impairing his ability to apply the genius formula. All drugs result in these effects in varying and increasing degrees every time they are taken, although there is a world of difference between an aspirin or a glass of wine and a hit of LSD. Drug use is not the door that it appears to be, and only if the user did windows instead of drugs, he would see that truth. Fortunately, a sufficient application of the genius formula can, of course, permanently break any drug habit and eliminate all the effects of prior drug use. What is the specific relationship between the genius formula and the truth distortion lens? The use of the genius formula counteracts the lens. It does not initially remove it, but it does the next best thing. Using the genius formula acts like a regrinding and polishing of many different points on the lens, bringing what is looked at through each of those points sharply into focus. When each of the key points has been reground and polished, everything viewed then is seen clearly, meaning totally understood, and the viewer is standing at the end of the road of truth. At that instant, the falseness that is inherent in the lens is totally understood, and the viewer's entire lens actually disappears forever. Is it possible to remove the lens, or effectively counteract it in any other manner? Well, I have thought this completely through, and there is one other approach, also based on the genius formula, from a different angle. It is a workable method by which it is possible, in effect, to, quote, drill holes, unquote, through the truth distortion lens until enough holes exist to allow the person to see, ultimately, truth clearly. Again, then your lens disappears. I am currently researching this technique and may explain it in another lecture after my research is complete. In the meantime, I urge you to practice and refine your application of the genius formula. It is senior to every method possible of addressing the truth distortion lens and will never become outdated. It is the most intelligent thought process possible, but only as valuable as it is used. When used extensively, its value is infinite. Now, earlier, I promised to take you on a Mach 10 ride from the beginning of the subject of truth to its very end, and so I shall. Now I will take you with me on a personal journey that will allow you to actually peek at ultimate truth. It will be brief and extremely limited, but afterward, you will never view either truth or yourself the same again. I want to share with you a more accurate understanding of ultimate truth by revealing one of its most treasured secrets, revealed by applying the genius formula. First, I need to present some background. The world may appear to comprise both good and bad individuals, but that is not the truth. If you think of the most helpful, kind, and ethical person that you know, he or she is a good person who has good intentions and often causes good effects. Now, you probably would not disagree with that statement. Conversely, if you think of the most selfish, cruel, and unethical person that you know, he would seem to be a bad person who has bad intentions and often causes bad effects. That's the illusion. That is not, however, quite the truth. To understand the truth, we must look at their intentions. It is true that some people's intentions are mostly good, and so are most of the effects they cause. Occasionally they have bad intentions and cause relatively minor bad effects. It is also true that some people's intentions are mostly bad, and so are the majority of the effects they cause. Once in a while they have good intentions and cause relatively minor good effects. Ultimately, however, we discover a startling fact if we analyze the illusion thoroughly. The truth is that both types of people, and all the types that fall in between, are essentially good, despite their intentions and the resultant effects. Regardless of their subsequent intentions, their original and most basic intentions are to be good. If the truth be known, no fundamentally bad person has ever existed. If you could select the most evil person this planet has ever known and clear away all the falseness and all the thought processes from the deepest caverns of his mind, within the last few feet at the back of the darkest and most inaccessible cave, you would find the strongest intention to be good that you have ever seen. If you could select the most evil person this planet has ever known and clear away all the falseness in all the thought processes from the deepest caverns of his mind, within the last meter or so at the back of the darkest and most inaccessible cave, you would find the strongest intention to be good that you have ever seen. Here is a megatruth. Every person who has ever existed was essentially good. How then does a person who is essentially good deteriorate to the point that he has bad intentions and causes bad effects? Well, the quick answer is that more falseness accumulated in his thinking than he was able to handle. He became overwhelmed with things he failed to understand, and consequently he began to misunderstand. When enough misunderstanding had accumulated, he accidentally caused bad effects and felt hurt when he realized what he had done. As the hurt impinged upon him, he understood less, and therefore unintentionally committed still more bad effects, which resulted in more hurt and less understanding, and you get the idea. In time, he found himself intending to do the only thing he seemed capable of doing, causing bad effects. That is precisely the kind of individual you look at and say, he's a bad person. No, he isn't truly a bad person. He is an essentially good person who is so thoroughly overloaded with falseness that he has run 10 light years off the road to truth, and does not know it. All he ever needed was to know more truth than he was able to see, and that is all he ever wanted to know, truth. If only he had known a workable technique, the genius formula, in the beginning that would have enabled him to pick apart the falseness and see the truth, and if he had applied it, he might well be your best friend today. That every person who has ever existed has been essentially good is one of the many well-kept secrets from the vicinity of ultimate truth. Yet it is an even more basic secret that I am leading you toward. I want to give you a better idea of what ultimate truth truly looks like. It has often been said that there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All who have lived long enough to see their most cherished dream shattered by falseness are sure there really isn't, but the saying is truer than they think. I'll show you what I mean. Remember when I analyzed the saying, "Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free"? Although it is an extremely true statement, the more closely our refinements of the proverb approached ultimate truth, the more it changed, ever so slightly. Ultimate truth is never exactly what you think it is unless you are seeing it head on, face to face, in its entirety. Then it is exactly as you perceive it and nothing else. As soon as one begins to say what it is, to try to represent it in words, the words imperfectly reflect something that is at least minutely different. It is what it is, but it is not words, which are symbols. Consequently, although one can travel the road to truth and perceive ultimate truth, he can never say exactly what it is, but he can come reasonably close. As one approaches ultimate truth and sees it more and more clearly, its appearance begins to change slightly. To unlock our basic ignorance of truth, represented by the door to truth, one of the requirements was that we isolate and identify the characteristics of truth, which we did. They are purity, simplicity, and beauty. Knowledge of those characteristics is priceless to you and will help you identify truth every moment from now until the time you are standing 3 millimicrons from ultimate truth. Consequently, they are completely workable as identifying characteristics, because when one is that close to the objective, it is certainly within easy grasp. Now, did you ever play Let's Pretend as a child? Loosen your imagination and play a version now. Really, come with me. Make believe that you are living within a fairy tale kingdom. Twilight is falling, and you are surrounded by dreams of twinkling stars and love and the fragrance of a multitude of flowers in bloom. Moonlight glistens in the dew on a rose. Hauntingly lovely musical refrains dance all about. You are overflowing with inspiration, happiness, and understanding. You live in a world of multicolored stardust and infinite ecstasy. The moment is magic. This must be paradise. Well, the relationship between a grain of sand and an entire beach is about the same as comparing the idea that we just imagined and ultimate truth. At a distance of 5 millimicrons, ultimate truth reflects essentially infinite, pure simplicity and beauty. Now let's move 1 millimicron closer, so we are only 4 millimicrons from ultimate truth. At this point, the characteristics cannot be more intense, but have become infinitely extensive. If we move 1 millimicron closer, we are only 3 millimicrons from ultimate truth. Now it becomes even more exciting. Here, as with each advance of a millimicron, many more secrets of truth are revealed. I'll let you in on one of them. Remember how the proverb began to disappear due to the ethereality of truth? At this point, so have the characteristics of truth. I'll explain. I have said that truth is a particular kind of absence. It is also an exceptionally peculiar kind. It is supremely reflective. As a result, the purity, beauty, and simplicity that one sees are not the product of truth itself, but rather the most basic characteristics of the person who is looking toward ultimate truth. It is the same as the idea of imagining yourself standing in front of a magic mirror that reflects no falseness whatsoever, only truth. Because the truth is that you, the person that you actually are, the spiritual entity that is truly you, innately are supremely good, infinitely pure in simplicity and beauty, that is precisely what you see in the mirror. Every time you see some appreciable truth in life and feel just great, or uncover some falseness and experience the wondrous truth within, or whenever the invisible hand tosses stardust in your face and you see it falling all around, you are not only experiencing truth. The truth you are sensing is a portion of the infiniteness of your own pure, simple beauty being reflected straight back at you. You are seeing some of the truth of your own basic characteristics. That is where it is all coming from. You. I think every person on planet Earth and every being in this universe deserves respect, compassion, and understanding. Don't you? Any time a person tells a lie, he thinks he is denying the truth, and that's true. But he is denying much more than that. Since truth is a reflection of what he truly is, he is denying himself. He is inhibiting his own beingness without knowing it. Each lie he tells clouds a little more of his true self and adds another piece of falseness on his own road between himself and ultimate truth. So in the end, no one ever told a single lie and got away with it. Never. 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 At the very least, he inescapably dug his own grave of falseness one shovelful deeper. He lied, justified it, and polished his own tombstone. Here is a megatruth. He who betrays another betrays himself. Honesty really is the best policy. Purity, simplicity, and beauty are supremely workable characteristics to discover truth. They are not, however, basic characteristics of truth. In fact, truth itself has only one basic characteristic: ultimate reflectiveness. What does it reflect? It merely reflects the knowledge and basic characteristics of the viewer. Is there more to that last sentence than meets the ear? I think so. Here is another secret of ultimate truth from a distance of 3 millimicrons. If it is possible to know ultimate truth, but truth only reflects the knowledge and basic characteristics of the viewer, then doesn't that mean that total knowledge is somehow contained within each of us? It certainly does. Every iota of knowledge within this entire universe is embodied somewhere deeply within you and within every other human being. That is why one of the highest refinements of know the truth and the truth shall set you free became, at 5 millimicrons, know truth and understand yourself. How much goodness, pure, beautiful simplicity do you see when you look deeply into another human being? That is precisely how much of the truth you are seeing about that person. Do you feel prejudice, or anger, or vengeance, or contempt, or hatred? If so, whatever you are looking at is not the real truth about that person. Or do you feel compassion, or enthusiasm, or agreement, or admiration, or love? I sincerely hope so, for it means that you are looking toward the truth. Now I would like to share a pearl of wisdom that adopts a position of undeniable obviousness when viewed at a distance of only 3 millimicrons from ultimate truth. Besides purity, simplicity, and beauty, meaning aesthetics, truth displays certain other characteristics which are not essential to the discovery of truth. In other words, by means of its basic characteristic of ultimate reflectiveness, it reflects some other characteristics of the viewer. Remember the example of representing truth with a bucket of fresh water? We added 1 drop of arsenic and no longer had any fresh water. The fresh water would not allow itself to be contaminated and remain fresh water. Similarly, the instant that we introduce a lie to truth, we no longer see the truth. The truth does not allow itself to be contaminated and remain true. Instead, to prevent itself from changing, it disappears from view. It does not disappear from, quote, existence, unquote. Please understand, the truth still is the truth, but it will not change. The truth is still the truth. Consequently, one of the characteristics of truth is that of unchangeableness. Accordingly, we determined earlier that with sufficient knowledge, you could change anything at all in this entire universe, but you could not change truth. Now, since truth is unchangeable, and since truth's basic characteristic is ultimate reflectiveness of the basic characteristics of the viewer, it means that your true basic self, you, in every sense of the word, is unchangeable. For example, Your purity, simplicity, and beauty can be surrounded with misunderstanding, troubles, and other falseness to such a degree that neither others nor even you can see through them without applying the genius formula, but it is all still there. All your purity, simplicity, and beauty. You can never really become less. And all the great goodness that you are deep inside can be revealed entirely by walking the road to truth all the way. Does this apply to you personally? Well, it does if you are alive. You must be. Who is listening to these lectures? And if you are not sure whether everything could be just an illusion, whose illusion? Who is thinking that doubtful thought? You. Now we arrive at the great secret of this particular matter. Since we see, when enough truth is revealed, that the true you is unchangeable, the truth is that you cannot die. You cannot be changed into a state of non-existence. Your body can change drastically. It can die. You can even thoroughly appear to die, but that is an apparentness, a lie. You are, in truth, immortal. Remember the common denominator of more than 10,000 years of philosophic tradition on earth. The road to great wisdom begins with the understanding that you are a spirit who can be freed from your body and can realize a state of immortality. Again, a megatruth. Like truth, life can be hidden, but never dies. Science supposedly comprises possession of knowledge as distinguished from ignorance or misunderstanding. Boy, somebody missed his rocket ship there. There are several basic reasons that modern science, in the final analysis, has failed you pitifully. The first reason is that it failed to expand its attention to include the part of man that is not his body. The second is that it failed to thoroughly examine man and discover that he is much more than his body. The third is that it failed to exclude the assumption that he is only his body. Science failed to differentiate, sorrowfully. Consequently, it has erroneously and continually attempted to explain man's immaterial aspects, such as thoughts, actions, and destiny, by studying that part of his body that is in closest association with the life entity, the brain. Well, you cannot get there from here. You can understand some relatively insignificant things about man by doing so, and you can explain a small number of phenomena that incidentally relate to chemical activity in the brain. And you can bestow upon yourself multitudinous awards and certificates of infinite authority written in painstaking calligraphy and dead languages on the dried skins of extinct sheep for having done so. But you are only tooting your own horn as you strut on stilts down a pier. Science studies bodies and chemicals and energies and actions and spaces and stars and everything else that the physical universe comprises except one thing. And that is a commendable endeavor. But that is all that it successfully studies, the physical universe. Oh yes, that one thing that it fails to expand its attention to encompass and examine, and which it assumes isn't really worthy of either its attention or examination, is the subject of trickery. In its failure to do that, science has been dead wrong. If only science had been less concerned with continuously considering itself right, had operated with a smidgen more intelligence, and had conscientiously studied the subject of trickery, it would have discovered an array of great truths to put Albert Einstein to shame. But then the reason that science failed to do any of those things was that it had been fooled, unknowingly, by itself. So it studied everything in the physical universe but trickery. Meanwhile, unfortunately, it also lacked the common sense to realize that it would be profitable to seek the advice of those whose intelligence measures the highest, on tests that their own experts devised. For example, what do you suppose that doctors of psychology who specialize in psychometrics, the study of mental measurement, do when their tests reveal that my intelligence is beyond measurement? Do you suppose they explore my mind further? Or do you suppose they ask me how they might measure the ranges of intelligence that exceed their scales? Or do you suppose they ask me to define intelligence? Or do you suppose they ask for any other intelligent advice? No. They explain that my intelligence is unquestionably of the highest caliber. I always suspected that I was slightly on the bright side. Pump my hand enthusiastically and at considerable length, and I appreciate the exercise, and stare at me continuously until I walk out the door. Huh? I will let you figure that one out. If science had intelligently studied trickery, it could have discovered the genius formula, and used that to discover that the physical universe is not alone. There are not only many planets, stars, and galaxies, but other universes and sub-universes as well, many of which are quite unphysical in nature. The so-called mystery of life is nothing but the deep mystery that science mucked itself into by thoroughly assuming that life could not possibly belong to an entirely different universe. Well, it does. One could say that the physical universe and the life universe collided. No wonder they suspect it all started with a big bang. Became enmeshed in one another, and here you are, animated substance, part physical and part unphysical. Now you see the reason science can smash neutrinos into plutonium atoms and blow up your planet. Hip, hip, hurrah! But tumbles and flounders and just can't quite get it figured out when it attempts to study the workings of the human mind, thought, psychic phenomena, or life itself. Did you ever notice how theoretical their studies of those subjects are? Well, the think tanks, with all of their accreditation and federal grants and philanthropic endowments, which are comprised of the big brains, appropriately, are not doing it all exactly right. There is just one teensy-weensy error upon which all of their theories about those subjects are based. They have the wrong universe. I love it. The life universe operates on laws that are just as certain and predictable as those of the physical universe, but they are different laws about which science is completely ignorant at this time. There is no rational reason for anyone to take offense at anything I am saying. I have always had a deep love of science. Indeed, when the public school system tested me to determine my areas of preference, I invariably scored in the highest percentile in science. Accordingly, with only benign intentions and all humor aside, I will now offer some priceless advice to the field that determined that I ought to know the answers, but then did not have the good sense to ask for them. At this moment, the great mistake of science is its righteous attitude that prevents it from realizing that it is failing to study the proper universe, and that some of the particularly valuable answers are known to and embraced by religion. Concurrently, the great mistake of religion is its own righteous attitude that prevents it from realizing that it is failing to significantly advance in either the quality or quantity of the knowledge it possesses, and that a less emotional and more logical scientific approach would result in some particularly valuable answers. I do not stand on the side of either science or religion. In fact, as a child, you will recall, I virtually electrocuted a physics instructor, and my parents received written notification from the teacher of a class of religious instruction that I was causing an uproar among the other students by offering opinions of a particularly disruptive nature. How is that for proof? In reality, I stand shoulder to shoulder with both science and religion. Each has selected a universe for study, and the study of each universe is entirely valid. But just as those two universes converged, so should science and religion work together to understand them. Or they should pay very close attention to these words of someone who does. Science and religion will, in time, converge, although it will probably result in somewhat of a big bang of its own, due solely to the righteousness and prejudice in both fields. They both ought to save time by giving some honest, unemotional, and objective thought to what I have indicated as their primary current mistakes, and then begin that most fruitful merger now. You would certainly be the beneficiary. That is my unsolicited advice to science and religion. Take it or leave it. I have my own research to do, and I am moving on. Now, don't you wonder about all the truths we have skipped, and about all the other truths to be found within the last 3 millimicrons from ultimate truth? You would surely be surprised. All this has nothing at all to do with the theoretical. We are not searching for truth here. We have tracked it all the way to its abode and discovered that it lives within you. We have met truth and discovered our true selves. The only reason that all the knowledge that rests deep within you is not freely available to you at this instant is that it is buried beneath a centillion tons of falseness, like an enormous pot of pure gold hidden a kilometer straight down beneath an overloaded landfill. Really, the only difference between you and me, except for the fact that we each have our own personality, experiences, and individual and indestructible basic identity, is that I have done some particularly intelligent digging. Well, I have bad news and good news for you. The bad news is that you only have 3 options. The good news is that one of them works. Your first option is to incorrectly assume that it is not feasible to dig that knowledge out, although you have already begun to do so. In that case, you will devote your existence to wandering haphazardly through a life that appears unfair, always searching ineffectively for more truth, but refusing to admit even that to yourself. Your second option is to use the best of your intelligence to select whatever you hope will be the road to truth for you. Pray for a compassionate destiny, and bet your eternity that you have not committed the most colossal of all mistakes. Good luck, which does not exist. Your third option is the genius formula, knowing that to the degree that you understand and apply it, you will discover what you have always wanted to know, and what the rest of mankind has been seeking since time immemorial: truth. I sincerely hope that you have the intelligence to realize that you now have a choice that has never existed through the ages, and that you decide that choice wisely. Everything that you hold dear, my friend, and the best of your dreams, and the eternity of your future depends on it. I have suggested that truth is like many things, from a bucket of fresh water to a butterfly. The analogy that was closest, though, was my suggestion that it is like a rainbow. Remember the specter of the Brocken? Your own floating image is projected into space and completely encircled by a vivid rainbow. Since there is no name for the phenomenon when it consists of 3 concentric rainbows, I think you and I should name it the rainbows of truth. At the end of the road, that miracle looks very much like what you will see. And that's the truth.